Welcome back, everyone, to part 2 of section 2.2, conditional statements. You may have been really confused in the first video. That is completely normal. It's a lot of information. It's very different than what you've been accustomed to in mathematics, but we're going to pick up where we left off, and hopefully things will be clear as we go along. Now, with conditional statements, okay, we already talked about the symbols for that up at the top. We use the P, we use the Q. P stands for hypothesis, Q stands for conclusion. All that is an if-then statement. So we're going to come up with an example. If the measure of angle A equals 15 degrees, then angle A is acute. Okay? We already talked about P being the part following if. So we're going to select this right here. This is the part following if. And I'm going to say this is my hypothesis. So I'm going to make it red. The conclusion, I need a punctuation, proper punctuation. There we go. The conclusion is the part following then. So this is the conclusion style. Make it blue. Okay. If angle A is 15 degrees, then angle A is acute. This is kind of like if if an animal is a robin, then that animal is a bird. I think it was up here. If an animal is a robin, then the animal is a bird, okay? Is this true? Well, in this case, but they're both true. So angle A is acute because it is 15 degrees. Now, how do we read that? This right here. How do we read this symbology? We read it as if P, then Q. Okay, that's what this stands for right here. If P, then Q. That's a conditional statement. Okay. Converse. Now, think about all these are different ways of writing the same thing. So we're going to use this same example 4 times. This is going to be applied to all these down here. Okay, so here, here, and here. We're just going to change up the order, and we're going to see how it affects the truth of this statement in a little bit. Okay, but first we're just going to practice writing it. Okay. So the second thing we're writing is the converse. Converse is when you switch it. So instead of P then Q, we're writing Q then P. That is the converse, not the shoe. We're talking about converse of conditional statements. Let me connect that little tail there. That's better. Now, what does that mean? Well, this is still in the front. I know the Q normally is the conclusion, but because of this arrow means we're going to be using the logic of conditional statements, so it's an if-then statement. Conditional means if-then statement. Okay, all these are going to be if-then statements. So let me get it set up here. So if, but now what's in the first position? This P was in the first position and went there. This is in the first position. It needs to go in the first spot also, like this. Okay, so if. And what was our conclusion? Our conclusion was angle A is acute. Okay. Now, let me get a different color. This green. This was in second position. This went here. Well, guess what? This Q is in second position. That statement needs to go there now. Measure of angle A equals 15 degrees. I don't want you to consider this too much yet. We're just going to write this all down, and then we'll think about the truth value, okay? So if Q, then P. Because the Q comes first and the P is second. Okay? I think I have too many colors. I just wanted to show you the positioning of that. So I think the colors are just too confusing right now. So let's get rid of the colors. But I hope you get the first slot, second slot type of orientation. Inverse. Now, inverse is a little different. We're going to be adding this negation. Okay, we talked about negation being not and having a symbol of this, and now you're going to see it applied. Okay, so the symbol is not P, then, that arrow always means then, not Q. Okay, not P, then not Q. What does that mean? Well, if we're going to be writing this, if measure of angle A is not equal to, that's what that means, 15 degrees, then measure of angle A, or angle A, is not, capitals, acute. Okay, so if it is not 15 degrees, then angle A is not acute. In words, if we're translating the symbols, we write if not P, then not Q. Now, you're probably having a hard time keeping up. Make sure to pause this or fast forward or rewind at any time so that this is a little bit more productive for you. Last one, contrapositive. So with this one right here, let me make this bigger. Oh, that's plenty big. With this one right here, we essentially took the conditional and just made negations, right? So those two are related. Now, with converse, we're just going to take converse and we're going to negate it for contrapositive. So those two are related, okay? So let's take the converse and we're going to negate it. How do we do that? Well, we do not Q, arrow, that means then, not P. Same thing as converse, just with not added in between, negation. Okay, still can write our statement if, and we're going to start with blue this time, it's in the first slot, angle A is not acute. Now we have then, our then statement, and our conclusion follows the then statement. Measure of angle A, that little m means measure, by the way. It's kind of important to know, but I mean, it's not make or break, okay? You can still understand that it's 15 or not 15 degrees, but just wanted to give you a heads up what that m meant. Measure, the measure. Okay, so then measure of angle A is not 15 degrees. And how do we write this? Well, since Q is in the first slot, it's if not Q, then not P, okay? So that's our table. This is really important. This is kind of like the foundation of conditional statements and logic and reasoning. So make sure you understand and you have this written down, okay? Moving on. So equivalent statements. Equivalent statements have the same truth value. Have the same truth value. So remember, truth value is either true or false. And we're going to understand if it's true or false. Now, 15 degrees. Well, let's kind of do a quick recap of acute angles. Acute angles we know are less than 90 degrees. So acute equals less than 90 degrees. So here's 90 degrees. It's got to be less than 90 degrees. It can't be equal to it. So acute means less than 90. Okay? I guess I'll put ... just so it connects it. Okay. Now, if measure of angle A is 15 degrees, then angle A is acute. That is true because it's less than 90 degrees. That is a true statement. Okay? So obviously we're going to have our converse here. Our converse is next, as indicated above, converse. And we're going to go ahead and write our statement. So we're just going to take this, and we're going to say, I'm just going to copy paste this. Let's copy paste my, oops, be very careful. Okay, I'm going to copy this, paste it here, make it a little bit bigger. Okay, if angle A is acute, then measure of angle A equals 15 degrees. What does this mean? Well, what they're trying to say is every acute angle is 15 degrees. That is not true. We could have a 89 degree angle. We could have a 85 degree angle. We could have a 20 degree angle. Okay? We came up with a bunch of counterexamples, and that was from section 2.1. And our counterexamples are 16 degrees, 89 degrees, okay, 30 degrees, and so on. Those are all counterexamples. If you can find just one counterexample, it makes it false. So in this case, it is false. I'm going to use purple instead. False. I'm going to make this one purple also. Okay. So we found a counterexample, so that makes the converse of this conditional statement false. Moving on to inverse. So with the inverse, remember, we're going to negate it for inverse. So our negation, if measure of angle A is not 15 degrees, okay, we're going to make it a little bit bigger. If it's not 15 degrees, then measure of angle A is not acute. Okay, I'm going to take this one. I might as well just take the one. Is not acute. Copy. And we're going to paste it over here. Is not acute. Okay, what's the truth value here? If measure of angle A is 15 degrees, then angle A is not acute. Again, we can use the same counter examples here. 16 degrees is not 15 degrees, but it is acute. So this too is false. So that is a false statement. Okay. Lastly, we have the counterpositive, right? Contrapositive, sorry. Oof, rough one. Contrapositive. Still derived from the same principle. Just trying to defend myself here. Okay. Now, it's just this flipped. So we're going to have the if then. I'm going to copy this. If, I might as well write it. If angle A is not acute, then measure of angle A is not 15 degrees. Okay. What do you guys think of this one? Is this true or false? If it's not acute, okay, so think about all the angles that are not acute. We have 90 is not acute, 91, 92, 180, 117, 115, 120, okay? Those are all not acute angles. Then angle of A is not 15 degrees. Well, none of those that I listed were 15 degrees, okay? So if it's not acute, then it can't be 15 degrees by definition. So this is true. Now you'll notice that equivalent statements. What are our equivalent statements? Well, the conditional and contrapositive for this statement were equivalent statements. And then we have converse and inverse were also the same truth value. They were both false. Okay? So this is this is how conditional statements work. And understanding this table is going to be super important going forward. Stay tuned for next time when we go over some worksheets. You'll need to watch those, and we're going to talk about some real-world examples, kind of like the animal one that we had up here, and that should be a little bit more helpful. I'll see you next time. Have a good rest of your day or night.